Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove. I want to get to Father's Day in a little while to make sure you had a great Father's Day weekend. We're going to have a special guest on we're going to do that with as well. But Matt, it is what we like to call the dog days of summer. There's nothing wrong with dog days of summer because it is summer. It is hot. We got a lot of heat coming to Buffalo and Western New
Yeah.
York this week, basically, as we sit here on June 17th. But, now it's the time where we have to kind of figure out things to talk about when it comes to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, we got to figure out some topics to talk about, but at the same time, there's always something to talk about, hence the
Mhm.
name of the podcast. It's always Game Day in
There you
Buffalo.
go.
It's not actually always Game Day in Buffalo, but there's always something Bills related to talk about. So I think we'll certainly manage over the next couple months.
All right. So before we bring in Eric Wood, who's going to join us on this podcast, you'll notice I have a new windscreen here. Here's what happened. So this I had to put this on. This is what the microphone looks like without a windscreen. Okay. And I had this thing that just look at what happened to this thing. It was on here and it got shredded. This
Got
after
mangled.
years. And it got torn up, right? So now I just put this new windscreen on, but it goes with my like Syracuse colors and all that. It's not the right windscreen, but it kind of looks cool on the podcast. So I'm just gonna keep it right there.
It looks like an Otto the Orange windscreen, specifically
exactly
made for
right.
Sal Capaccio.
It's
Sent
exactly
from the Newhouse School of Communications.
Well, I also did that because anytime I can needle our ACC friend and, of course, former Buffalo Bills center and current Buffalo Bills radio analyst Eric Wood, I like to do that as well. He joins us now, and it's always Game Day in Buffalo. Eric, thanks for coming on here on It's Always Game Day with Matt and me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always a pleasure getting to be on with you guys. I was going to make a comment about that. It looks like something like out of the 80s. Like,
I know.
when Greg and Todd in the broadcast booth, like we'll have something like super old school and it's like our headphones will have like a dark brown windscreen on it. It kind of reminds me of that. Maybe I figured they set you up with that.
No, I'll have to get a new one from them, though, for the next podcast. Eric, one of the reasons why we're going to have Eric on the podcast is he has a really cool golf event coming up this week that both Matt and I are going to play in again out in Batavia, and also gives him a chance to talk about his Flights and Bites, which is his annual event at Resurgence coming up in November. So, Eric, Thursday is your golf event raising money for the Evan Wood Foundation. It's always a great event. I have the pleasure and honor to be the MC for the auction afterwards and, hang out with a bunch of people. Matt's going to be playing in it this year. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah. And honestly, I just get to come be a part of it. And that's actually rare as far as, I don't want to say celebrity golf tournaments go, but, fundraisers that are tied in with an athlete's foundation. This is B&L Wholesale's annual tournament. A few years ago, actually, I think it goes back about 5 years ago, they decided, we built a relationship with them to donate all of their funds from the golf tournament to the Evan Wood Fund. Well, most golf tournaments don't raise that much money. This one does. They are very great stewards of the money of everybody's donations that it brings in for the golf tournament. And it's just been an absolute blessing. Honestly, we wouldn't be able to do maybe half of what we get to do for these families if it wasn't for this golf tournament. So we're extremely grateful. Last year, I was talking to my wife about it. I believe we generally do one big family trip a year. I believe we were in Alaska last year, so I couldn't make it in. And so this year I'm excited to be back up for the event. It's always a great event. And then, yes, again, this fall we'll have our annual fundraiser that we do during the season, and that's Flights and Bites. It's at Resurgence again this year. Sal will be a part of it. Matt, we'll have to get you out there this year. It's a ton of fun. It's unique. It's kind of a old school, no cell phones, no pictures, fairly small crowd band. I mean, it's kind of like an old school throwdown, but we make sure that we raise money for the families and that the cause is the central point of the night as well.
That means you can have fun with no cell phones. You can actually just have a good time. You don't have to worry about it being recorded. Eric, tell everyone what the Evan Wood Fund does and what it goes towards.
Yeah, so it's named. It all started originally. I had a foundation in Buffalo. First thing that came to my mind was just call it the Eric Wood Foundation. We're going to raise money for families that have chronically ill or disabled children in Buffalo. So, help out the families, provide unique experiences. We do game day experiences with a suite where families can come from the hospital, go there. We provide Christmas support. We provide, just financial assistance for families that are on hard times because they have a sick or disabled child. Well, it was named after my little brother, Evan, who passed when he was 11 years old, who was born with severe cerebral palsy. And so it was all in his honor from the start. And so when I decided to move it from a foundation to a fund under the Children's Hospital, which allows us to donate a lot more, nearly every single dollar that comes in now gets donated. We don't have a foundation director. We don't have kind of all the bells and whistles that a foundation has. And so we're able to donate every single dollar that now comes in to the fund. And so it's a really cool way for me to be able to honor my brother in Buffalo, who never got to walk or talk or breathe on his own. Now in Buffalo, New York, in Western New York, hopefully his name will be remembered forever because of the impact that he had on me, and now in his name that it has on the community.
It's going to be the heavy hitters out there for us. The 3 sports directors in Buffalo, the 3 main television channels, 2, 4, and 7, ABC, NBC, and CBS. Matt Bove, Josh Reed, John Scott joining me on a foursome to play in the Eric Wood, Foundation, the Evan Wood Foundation, I should say, Eric Wood golf event at Batavia. But I do have a question about this. Now, we're okay. Matt's a really good golfer. Matt's good. You're one of the better golfers I know, Eric. Okay, I'll say that. But Matt's a very good golfer. But I do want to know, Eric, what is the etiquette about someone winning their own golf tournament before we start this?
It's not good. And it happened 2 years ago. And I felt bad. Now, Colin, who grew up in our program, a cancer survivor. I played with him and his dad, and I played with Andrew Lashua from the Hospital Foundation. And Colin was our big hitter. And honestly, we played well that day. We won outright. I mean, it was fair and square. I hate cheating in a scramble. Like, that's one of my least favorite things on earth. Back in the day, and let me just sidetrack for a second. So back in the day, Jim Kelly's golf tournament used to have a volunteer on every single green. So maybe if you moved your ball into the fairway or whatever, you could cheat to an extent, but someone recorded all the scores on every single hole. And minus 15, minus 16 would generally win it. They took away the volunteers on every hole, and now minus 22 wins it each year. And so to me, we won it fair and square that year. And I did say on the microphone, I appreciate you bringing that up. I did say on the microphone that, it's not very classy to win your own event. Now, I wanted Colin, a kid who came through the program. I was fighting hard to win it for him that day. And we'll see what happens this Thursday, though.
Well, we'll have
What's
to.
the
we'll
handicap
have to
these days?
Yeah.
I'm on a 6. I'm on a 6 index. I've played some rough golf this year, but I like myself on a 6 for tournaments. I just like when you go to play some better players or try and get in different events, it sounded a lot better when I was a 3 or 4, but that's okay. I put my pride aside, and, I like, for gambling purposes, for tournament purposes, I love being on a 6 index. You just got to put your pride aside sometimes when you feel like you should be a little bit lower.
It's always a tricky thing because I think the way to eliminate a lot of that too, though, is to not have mulligans. But of course, everybody buys mulligans. It goes to a great cause. So why not? Why would you eliminate mulligans, right? So it's always a tricky thing when it comes to that kind of stuff. So Batavia is now, Eric, if people want to be a part of this, they just, they want to play golf or they want to donate something, anything. Is there anything they can do to be a part of this on Thursday, June 20th at Terry Hills Golf Course?
Yeah, I would reach out to B&L Wholesale Supply if you're interested in supporting the event. Like I said, extremely great stewards of that money. I believe it's sold out for this year, but in future years, we would love to have that support.
Yeah, get in now for sure if you want to do that. And of course, if you do want to be a part of Flights and Bites, also Resurgence, that's going to be coming up on November 4th. And, that's always a great event. Now, Matt, truth be told, Eric said no recording. My wife always records me playing the drums. I get to play the drums every year with Chris Farrar and the Common Good. They allow me to get up there. I play the drums for a song, and Ileana records me playing because I want to be cool.
Yeah, and when I say no cell phones, I mean, we don't make you check it in at the door, but kind of our MO is over the years, sometimes the players come out and they'll have some fun. It's a Monday night. They're off on Tuesdays. And so the players like to come out and have fun. And the last thing I would want is, look, someone's innocently having a beer. It's at a brewery. And then all of a sudden it's used against them when they're there supporting a great cause. And so, if you want a picture with maybe one of the guys on the teams that comes out, we would love to take a professional photo of you guys together. And so it's not necessarily like people are unapproachable. We just like to keep the cell phones at bay. That way, some of the bigger name guys on the team that come out, they can really enjoy themselves. And it actually leads to better conversations. And it allows you to actually get to know someone as opposed to, hey, let me wait in line with my camera phone, with my cell phone, get a picture, and then that's the end of the experience.
There's a certain guy who wears number 17 who I know a lot of people are probably very eager to see. But in a serious note, I know that you overlapped with some of the guys on the team, but there's now this entirely new wave of players here in Buffalo. What is it like, though, for you to have that connection still to this organization, even though you are several years removed from when you ultimately retired?
Yeah, it's great. And look, there's a certain trust factor that needs to be acquired when you technically work in the media, but I'm also there, like on game days, I'm there at breakfast. And there's times where maybe they bring in a new offensive lineman and Cromer will say, hey, reach out to Eric and, maybe, ask him about me or see if he has any advice kind of acclimating to my system, whatever it may be. Aaron Cromer came in 2015 to the Bills. So I had been playing for a while before he came there. So, hey, give them some pointers. So it's just kind of an interesting balance. And look, I tell them all the time, like, I'm not Adam Schefter. I'm not in this business to ever break a story. Like, there's nothing you could say to me that I'm going to just shove out there on Twitter. I'm never going to make you look bad. And so it's kind of been an acquired trust with a lot of guys. And me being, fairly good buddies with 17 helps when when those guys are like, okay, well, if Josh is pretty good buddies with him, then goes to Derby with him, then I guess, I can trust this guy.
Eric Wood joining us here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Speaking of 17, Eric played in his 117 holes of golf just a few weeks ago at Craigburn. They got very wet. Josh Allen's dad was there as well. That was super cool. And I want to ask you guys about Father's Day here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Eric Wood joining Sal Capaccio and Matt Bove. It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Did you guys get anything really cool or do anything really cool for Father's Day?
Go ahead, Matt. I'll let you start off.
I mean, I golfed, right? I think that's
it.
what people do on Father's Day. I had the morning and, I played a round of golf and it was lovely. And then I watched the US Open. So that is what I dedicated my day towards, basically golf, because I do not get to play nearly as much as I would like anymore. So I considered that the practice round for Thursday's tournament with Eric.
There you go. What'd you end up doing, Sal?
Well, we had a doubleheader baseball game in Niagara Falls for Max's travel baseball team where I'm the head coach. And it was awesome. It was great to be with the kids and the boys. And my wife and another woman are the team moms. So they organized pizza in between the doubleheader for all the kids. And we played just by Sal Magley Stadium out there, which was amazing. We split the doubleheader, but we came home winners. So that was great to end it on that. And then went out to dinner afterwards, watched the golf on a TV at the bar out to dinner, and then sat down for a great dinner, which was really cool. But here's what I got that's really cool, guys. This is what Max got me. I want to show you this. All right. So whenever Max comes home from school, first thing he says to me every day, I'm hungry. And he's a growing boy. He's 10 years old. And my response is always, hi, hungry. I'm dad. So here is my Father's Day gift.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. That is great.
I love that. Look at you. Look at you.
Now,
that's well done.
I want to know, was that a custom-made shirt or was that a targeted Instagram ad based upon your cell phone listening?
I know, right?
That could be
probably
listening to the conversations, and then they realized that you would probably want that shirt.
Either way, I'm not really sure. They got it somehow. I think they sold it somewhere, actually, because apparently this is what happens to all. Hey, your son is almost there. How old's your son, Eric?
He's 6.
He's 6.
Yes,
He'll be there.
He's always hungry. He's always hungry as well. Yes.
Always hungry. Wait till he gets off that bus. Dad, I'm hungry, right? Everything. He's going to be doing that. So Dad, I'm hungry. What'd you do?
We hung out with our families yesterday, went to church in the morning. I didn't play golf. I was invited to, and Matt, I do get to play a decent amount of golf, especially in the summertime when, in the fall, I try and really limit it because I'm gone every weekend. But during the summer times, I get a good amount of golf in. So I did not play yesterday. We went to church in the morning, had our families over and hung out and had a good day. We watched golf all day, and luckily, my family's pretty into it. So I didn't feel bad sitting around watching the US Open all day. Felt terrible for Rory. I don't know if you guys saw his statement today, basically saying in 17 years of professional golf, this is probably the hardest thing he's had to deal with. And, there's all the memes, there's the huge holes that people have, mocked up of the GIFs. And then, it's him missing these monster holes and whatnot, but you feel for the guy. But I'll say this, I was rooting for DeChambeau. I got to meet him Tuesday night of PGA Championship week at a small event in Louisville and talked to him for a few. I was actually invited to his golf tournament the year before and couldn't make it down, but it wasn't him personally texting me and inviting me. I got invited through a mutual friend, but I told him about that and, love to make it in the future. But just a super, super nice guy. Just really enjoyed my time, short time with him. And then just watching how he treated everybody the week of the PGA here in Louisville. And look, people might say, okay, he's got a great PR guy. He's flipped his image 180. Well, I think he said it best when he said, look, early in my career, I didn't get the spotlight. I didn't get the responsibility that comes with it. And was I a hothead at times? Yes. Did I handle every situation great? Absolutely not. But I've learned and I've taken a step back. He got out of the spotlight a little bit when he went to the Live Tour. And now when he's playing in these featured events on the PGA, these majors that he's coming back for, it's amazing how he's treating everybody, what he's done for his image through the YouTube golf and whatnot. So I was happy for him. In that shot he hit on 18, 55 yards from the sand. That's one of those risk reward. And he said it best. He's like, I purposely chunk and run it. So, hit behind the ball, knowing that the worst case, I come up short, I can still get up and down, go to a playoff. But if it works out, if it rolls out, then I can get in and win it. And it worked out for him.
My thing about Bryson is I totally agree with you about him kind of turning around his image over the years. My biggest thing with him, I love the accessibility that he has brought golf, specifically from the YouTube side of things, just because that is now an avenue for so many people to take in golf content. Literally, if I turn on my television right now, it'll come up with all of my recommended stuff on YouTube, and it'll be a bunch of podcasts about the Buffalo Bills, and then it'll be a bunch of YouTube videos with GM Golf, Grant Horvat, Bob Does Sports, him. And I just think that it is bringing the game to such a new generation of people. And to me, that is invaluable. So Bryson, for me, went from, I would have been happy either way because I really like Rory, but Bryson to me has been a 180 because 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, yeah, I can't really do it with this guy. Now I almost felt myself rooting for him and was certainly not disappointed when he did win.
No, I'm with you 100%, Matt. I mean, and it's amazing what the game of golf has become with this YouTube golf sensation, to where like my little boy will get into a golf tournament on the weekend, but for him to just sit there and watch for hours on end, he's probably going to lose a little bit of interest. But he sat there when Josh Allen played Grant Horvat on YouTube.
Yep.
He sat there for an hour and 15 minutes, and I walked away, and he's yelling score updates to me with Josh versus Grant in the other room.
I love it.
He's into the Bob Does Sports guys, and he's 6 years old. So for me, I want Garrett to be into golf because that allows me to steal time with him. Like, we can go out on the golf course together, spend time doing that. That's a lot more fun to me than sitting around, watching whatever on TV, watching some Disney movie, whatever it may be. And so I'm all in on the YouTube golf guys. I've gotten to know some of these guys, and like the Bob Does Sports guys, we connected for a round in Jupiter. Then FP came in with me for Derby, and I've connected with those guys. Paige Feranic played with her recently. She came with us to Oaks Derby weekend. And so that whole YouTube golf community, it's amazing how they all kind of like piggyback each other. It's not like, yes, they're competing against each other, but in a sense, they're all kind of in the same boat, trying to elevate each other as well. It's a neat deal.
Eric, real quick, what is the deal?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Sal, I didn't mean to cut you off there. What is so Perez there's a somehow Buffalo or a Rochester connection, right? Is he from there, or his dad's from there, or something like that?
Yeah, so he has family from the area, and then he grew up in Virginia, but he remained a Bills fan. And so he married a girl from Louisville, and then they moved to Jupiter. I belong to a country club in Jupiter, Florida. And so a mutual friend basically introduced us via text and said, hey, there's 0 degrees of separation here. I feel like you guys should hang out and you'll hit it off. And he was right. We became fast friends.
Very cool. Eric Wood joining us here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Eric's getting ready for another season on the Bills radio network, as am I, to be on the sidelines. And unfortunately, we know now that John Murphy won't be coming back for play-by-play duties. Chris Brown's done a great job over the last year and a half. It's no secret that that job is currently open and being posted. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but we do know it won't be John Murphy. Eric, if you could just kind of reflect on your time calling games with John in the booth with you next to you every game.
Yeah, I'll forever be grateful for how John took me into the broadcast. He was so close with Mark Kelso. I was brought in to replace him. Mark stepped away, and I was replacing Mark Kelso, he was close with. And for me, the way that Murph just brought me in Murph is just the ultimate professional. He made it so easy on me every single Sunday. And we had so many laughs together. We had so many great meals together, and I'm going to miss him. And I hope there's some way, shape, or form that he's a part of Sundays, and whether that's hanging out in the booth, or whether that's a segment in the pregame we can get him in for. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I just hope that there's some way we can work him in. I had him on my Center on Buffalo podcast recently, and didn't plan on it, but completely broke down crying at the end of it, talking about how much I'm going to miss him. And so, to me, just a special person, and a guy that I'll remain close to and friends with forever. And, this will be a transition, and it already has been a transition with Chris taking over the last year and a half. And there was hopes that Murph would be able to come back into the booth. And he's basically said, it wasn't fair for him to just continue to leave the gig, just on hold and in limbo. And so he's stepping away from the play-by-play duties, but hopefully there's some way he can be involved. And I wouldn't even mind if it's just him being in the booth with us on Sundays and, hanging out after the game and giving his thoughts.
Yeah, Buffalo broadcasting is better because of guys like John Murphy. Obviously, Eric worked with him. Sal worked with him. I had a chance to work with him for a couple of years. We're all better because of it, and we all
you followed in his seat, so to speak. He was there many years before you, but I mean, you're in the exact same role that he was. Me watching growing up.
Yeah, I mean, there was only 6 sports directors in the history of WKBW. One of them is John Murphy, and one of them is me. And actually, the guy. Then there's Jeff Russo, Joe Biscaglia, Rick Azar, and then Bob Kaczynski. So those are the 6 people. Amazing. I always love that Murph is a Niagara County guy. Bob Kaczynski is a Wheatfield guy. I'm a Wheatfield guy. So we have kind of the lion's share of the WKBW sports director titles. Hopefully that's not something that I give away anytime soon. But yeah, we're all definitely better because of Murph. So Eric, thank you for that. But we also do want to talk about the current Bills team and a lot of stuff offensive line. Go ahead, Sal.
Before you do, I want to say this. This is how small the 6 degrees separation, 2 degrees, whatever, how small Western New York is. You brought up Rick Azar. Rick Azar passed away in 2021. He was 90 something years old. I went to watch the turkey trot this year, which runs by my house. Okay. I go up to Delaware, watch the turkey trot. This gentleman who had to be in his 50s or 60s stopped, saw me watching. I wasn't running. He was running. Said, Sal Capaccio, man, I listen to you all the time. My dad was Rick Azar.
No kidding. Really?
Unbelievable. Yes.
That's
how
crazy.
Cool is that?
That's
Rick
like
was
so Buffalo.
One of my idols growing up watching, just like Murph, obviously.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh my gosh. All the best. All the best. All right, let's talk some football coming up.
All right, let's talk about what the Bills are going to do at center this year, because all signs point to Connor McGovern transitioning from guard to center. It's a position Eric Wood played. He knows it very well. He could speak better than anyone we could bring on about what that entails, especially playing for Aaron Cromer. Now, there's been a lot made of Connor McGovern's size. Look, Mitch Morse wasn't a small guy either, right? He was also a guy that was, a pretty big center. But is there something to be kind of maybe concerned about, or is there an adjustment that Josh Allen has to make to having one of the bigger centers in the league?
No, and actually Connor's an inch shorter than Mitch Moore. So the only thing you'd be concerned about, and the only person I ever really heard talk about it, was Tom Brady when he wanted his centers. And maybe this is just, something else that people brought up, but Tom's centers were always like 6'2" or smaller. But, I was 6'4", Mitch 6'6", Connor, I believe, is 6'5". And I don't think there's that much, of a big deal there with him being 6'5" and being in front of Josh. To me, when I look at this transition, though, this is a guy who played a ton of ball at center in college. He's comfortable with it. He said multiple times that center is his natural position. That's exactly how I felt when I entered the NFL. The Bills put me at guard for a year and a half. Jeff Handgartner got hurt my second year. I actually had a high ankle sprain at the time and had missed the previous 2 games, at least 1 game, and got hurt the previous. So I was out, almost 2 weeks, and they said, hey, if you come back this week, we'll let you play center. So I taped it up, did what I had to do to get through that game, but I wanted to go back to playing center because that was my natural position. When I hear Connor McGovern talk about wanting to get back to center, I could see it from my own perspective, because that's exactly how I felt. And not that, there's a huge difference between playing center and guard, but when you're the center, you get to make all the calls. You direct the offensive line. You're the leader of the group. So it's from a leadership perspective, from a, if you have that knack, that want to be able to make the calls in each and every play and run the show, then you want to be in the pivot. And that's where I can hear it in Connor's voice. And then also from a skill set, yes, Connor has been a very good guard, but if you have what it takes to be a good center, and you get those guys right on top of you a lot of plays, and you get your hands on them, you can really dominate that position if you have, kind of the muscle memory, if you've built up those reps of playing center, comfortable, snapping and stepping at the exact same time. And so to me, I feel like it'll be a natural transition for him. Now, he played so good at guard last year next to Dion, and Dion played well too. It almost makes me think, well, was there anybody else? Is it a Alec Anderson? Is it a Van Pran Granger? Can those guys, hop into the pivot? But the way it's looking right now, it's looking like they're going to put McGovern at center, and I think he's going to have a heck of a year.
Eric, what would need to happen for the line to take a step forward? And I know how difficult that would be considering how good they were last year. Felt like everybody last year played exceptionally well. Is there a possibility, though, that this young line could continue to get better?
I think so. I mean, Dion played at such a high level last year. There's no reason to think that he couldn't replicate that. Spencer Brown took a step forward last year. Can he take another step forward? Osiris Torrance was playing as a rookie last year, and I thought he played extremely well, but it was far from perfect. And you don't expect a rookie to step in there and be perfect at a lot of times. But I think he can definitely make improvements this year. And then, David Edwards, we'll see what he can do at left guard. And then, Mitch Morris played great last year, but can Connor McGovern, step in and play equal or maybe even better? He's younger. He's likely more powerful. Is he as athletic as Mitch Morris? I'm not sure, but, I have a lot of confidence in Joe Brady to be able to utilize each of their skill sets to their advantage. And I say that, we pull our tackles in Buffalo more than anyone in the NFL, but Cromer will tell you when you have guys as athletic as Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins, then you do that because Spencer Brown, even though Osiris Torrance has a shorter way, let's say they're running trap to the left. Well, a lot of times that's the right guard pulling. Well, Spencer Brown's so athletic, he can get there. And so this is getting way into the woods, but it's easier for Osiris Torrance to block back on the 3 technique and then pull Spencer Brown, as opposed to Spencer Brown trying to cut off the 3 technique and then you pull Osiris Torrance. So to me, I've always been impressed with how Aaron Cromer can scheme up run blocking schemes up front. Was really impressed with what Joe Brady did for the remainder of the season last year when he took over. And I'm excited to see what he can do full-time duties as offensive coordinator with a full year or full offseason to prep for this upcoming season as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the way I asked it was about Connor McGovern. Maybe we think he'll be fine, but can the guards be what they were, right? And you're right. Can David Edwards fill the role of Connor McGovern? And can Osiris Torrance take a step and replicate by playing every single snap, which was incredible, by the way, last year that he did that. But also, Eric, I mean, you mentioned it. Alec Anderson, they signed Lael Collins, who they can play at guard and tackle. Ryan Vandermark is a really nice player. I think this team has a lot of depth on offensive line, and that's something you're going to need to sustain a 17-game season through 18 weeks plus playoffs.
Right. And these offensive linemen also become very valuable as far as, end of training camp moves as well. We've seen Brandon Beane flip these guys for draft picks when they've, had a ton of depth on the offensive line. They bring Will Clapp in. He's got some experience in this league, and they got a lot of guys that can play ball up there. So to me, they're in a very, very good spot on the offensive line right now. It's far from any of my concern heading into the season.
Eric, what do you think the Bills' identity should be on offense this year? Because we've kind of gotten used to what it has been for the last 4 years. And then at that point when Joe Brady took over last year, it changed a little bit, but that also led to more team success. Should it be more of what we saw during Joe Brady's 8 games? Or is that just kind of what he could do with the pieces that he had? And we'll see a completely new spin on it coming up this season.
That's a great question. I mean, to me, it looks like it's going to be somewhat of a balanced attack but I honestly think it's going to be game plan specific. If, when I looked at how Joe Brady would scheme against defenses for that remainder of the season, he even said, look, I'm using plays that were in Ken Dorsey's playbook because you can't, change all the terminology and, mid-season like they were in. So he's kind of using Ken's plays, maybe some one-off game plan specific plays. But to me, it's going to be a balanced attack, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's 50-50 run and pass. I think they're always going to have some type of run element in there, whether that's with Josh in the red zone. But, we'll see a lot of James Cook throughout the season. But I think it's going to be game plan specific and where they can catch advantages out there. They have kind of a group of receivers right now. When you look at it on paper, they all kind of have their individual roles to where maybe it's, we don't have the Stephon Diggs out there, but it's going to be more just specifically attacking matchups or attacking what the coverage is giving you and not necessarily saying, hey, we need to get this guy 8 balls a game. And so I'm honestly excited about what this offense can be. And although they lose Diggs on the outside, I don't have concerns that this is not going to be a team that's top 3 in the NFL in offense again this season.
We can talk a lot more about the Bills on the field with Eric Wood, I'm sure, as we head closer to training camp. Once again, he'll be on the radio call for the Buffalo Bills radio network. Before we wrap up with Eric, a couple questions for both you guys here. First of all, it's sad to say, it's sad to report, but obviously big news out of Buffalo today. The old Pink is gone. The old Pink burned down in Allentown, on Allen Avenue and on Allen Street. It's just horrible seeing it. And before we went on the air, we recorded, by the way, it's June 17th is Monday night. We're recording here. Before that, I was watching the wrecking ball already taken to it. Man, it's just tough to see. I don't know if you spent any time down there, Eric, but I know you know Allen Street pretty well in that area, at least. But both you guys, I mean, just it's sad to see, obviously, a staple, a landmark for a lot of Buffalonians. And whether you're older or younger, you might have a memory or two from there.
Yeah, I never got to go there myself, but have heard about it and have spent some time on Allen Street and Allentown. And to me, downtown Buffalo is so incredible with just the historic areas down there, and to see a piece of that go up in flames. It was honestly the first thing I saw when I opened social media this morning. It was tough to see.
Yeah, my favorite post that I saw on social media, because I feel like this paints a perfect picture of what the Pink was. I don't know who the guy is, but somebody tweeted, I met my wife and my weed dealer at the Pink on the exact same night in 1992. And I was like, that is the perfect way of describing what the Pink was, and just the different people that it brought in from all of these different walks of life. I had only been to the Pink probably 3 or 4 times in my life. It had been several years since I've been there, but I am extremely grateful that I have had the steak sandwich from the Pink. And when you got to the Pink, at least for me, I never really knew what was going to happen next or how the night was going to go. But I also think that that was part of the kind of lore of a place like that. It was so mysterious and felt just so different than what I was used. I mean, I'm from Wheatfield, guys. We don't have a Pink in Wheatfield. So it was really, really cool hanging out there when I did get a chance to.
Do we know if that weed dealer and wife aren't the same person for that guy? I mean, it could very well be, right? Could have been.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
maybe.
I doubt it. Probably not. All right. And then let's go in the Wayback Machine. Now, Eric, I know you would have only been 8, 9 years old, maybe around there, but this is also the 30th anniversary of the OJ car chase. And I know that, do you remember your parents watching it, Eric, or anything at all from that time?
No, I do remember it. And I remember, seeing it on network television, watching the chase, obviously, as a kid, I'm, trying to take it all in, probably didn't understand the circumstances involved with what was at stake and what he was on the run from. But I do remember that.
I was playing. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I don't remember any of it because I'm 31. So I wouldn't remember anything that happened 30 years ago. But the stories that I've heard from Keith Radford. So Keith Radford, longtime anchor at Channel 7, he covered all of it while everything was happening in LA, the trial. And he also got OJ for his first ever sit-down interview following the trial. And I remember Keith telling me like this fascinating journalism dilemma of OJ agreed to do the interview, but said he wouldn't answer any questions about the trial. Now, journalistically, that's like a no-go. You have to ask. That's the question that everybody wants to know about. Now, Keith said yes to the terms because he said, there's no way I'm going to turn this down. I'm just going to get there, and I'm going to see what I get. And the first question he asked, on his own, OJ started talking about how he was innocent in the trial and all of the different layers to it. So that is the only thing I know about everything that played out. But yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, it's an iconic, it's one of the probably most memorable moments in television news history, if not the most memorable.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do remember watching Game 5 that night because I was 21 years old. So I was legally able to drink, and I was playing baseball for a team that was sponsored by a bar that was located at the time on Delaware Avenue, Delaware and Hurdle, which is now like a strip shop, strip mall shop, basically, or I shouldn't say it that way. It's a bunch of shops inside. It's a newer, I don't know how you say it. You don't understand. Some shopping. There's a
A strip shop and
there.
a strip mall. I feel like different things.
You get my point.
So different.
Yes, but anyway, this was a bar. It was called Chesterfield's, by the way. So Chesterfield's was a bar. We were in there, and I remember we played a game at Delaware Park. Went to the sponsor because that's what you do after the game. We're having a beer or two and we're watching, and game 5 is on, and there goes, OJ on the loose and on the run. And, people just, kind of riveted by all of that. So yeah, it was a memorable night for sure. Let's,
did you drink beer back then, or were you still a wine guy back then?
I was not a wine. I did not acquire a taste for wine until I was older in life. Actually, Eric, I did not. I would have thought wine was not cool and yucky, I would think. I was never a big beer drinker, but you know what? When you went out in 21, you go out after the game with the boys, and this is before like seltzers are now and things like that. You had a beer, but I still didn't drink a lot. I remember my first like kind of alcoholic beverage I liked that I acquired a taste for was amaretto sour. You ever have an amaretto sour? And I would order that, and that would be something I'd drink. But no, I didn't drink a lot of beer back then. But you had to have one or two when you went out with the guys after a baseball game that was sponsored by the bar where you went to.
That makes sense.
Eric, every time you have somebody on the podcast, you always ask them where their favorite wing spot is. And I feel like they all say the exact same thing, or at least most of them say the exact same thing. So I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite wing spot? But then I'm also going to ask you, what is your second favorite wing spot in case you give me the answer that I'm assuming you're going to give me?
Yeah. So most of the answers, and look, guys on the team, they come in. And so if Josh says Bar Bill are the best wings, and that's what everyone's been saying is Bar Bill, well, then, most of the guys live in Orchard Park. East Aurora is right there. It's fairly close to get them from. And so people will get them, but it's kind of word of mouth and just kind of, routine. Plus these guys aren't they're not getting wings multiple times a week. If anything, it's like you have people in town. For the most part, you're eating fairly healthy, throughout the week. And so you're not generally going out to eat. You'll get food from the facility. A lot of these guys now have chefs. All that being said, everyone's been saying Bar Bill. I really do like Bar Bill.
Yep.
They may be the top for me. I love Sonny Red's wings, which were kind of a spinoff from Mulberry. Mulberry never had wings before, but the first time I ever went to eat at Mulberry, Joe made me wings. And so I started requesting them down there and finally put them on the menu. Then they did Sonny Red's. Love that spot. Absolutely love the Big Tree. This is not a fact, but my jersey's on the wall at the Big Tree. And they made a joke for a while that the only way your jersey can get on the wall at the Big Tree is if you were in the Hall of Fame or if you spent $100,000 in the Big Tree. I have not spent $100,000 in the Big Tree, and I'll never make the Hall of Fame. So neither of those are true, but love the Big Tree as well. And then back in the day, like I was never worried about like if a spot had good wings, I just said they had good wings. It wasn't, okay, what's my number one? What's my number two? So I have been to Elmo's, I've been to 911 Tavern, but it's probably been 13, 14 years. I got to get back to those places. And there's a few other ones that I gotta get to because I want to, I'm getting, a different Bills player, coach, or media person on the podcast every week. And I want to be able to give them some advice, whether it's live on the podcast or at least afterwards, be like, hey, why don't you all go check out these spots as well? Recently went to Wing Nuts and really like that as well. Their wings, I probably wouldn't put their buffalo wings on par with, the others that I mentioned, but as an overall restaurant, I mean, it's owned by 3 chefs. Their food just in general there is incredible.
I haven't been. All right. I definitely have to try it though.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. I was kind of worried about Wing Nuts because I felt like Barstool kind of blew them up and they weren't a traditional spot. And then I got, I'm a sucker too. Like I met the owners and they were so nice and
awesome.
I heard their story and they were telling me about their pizza and how long it took to create this crust. Well, then when you tried, someone told you it took 6 months to create a crust. Then you taste it, like,
love it.
Well, then you're like, wow, this is really good. And you appreciate the intentionality there. And I don't know, I kind of have a similar deal in Louisville, but not other cities besides Louisville and Buffalo. And I find myself going to the same restaurants over and over, but the people that own them that come out and talk, it's like, they're so great. I almost feel guilty not going back to a place like that. And then, if you're a chef owned restaurant, if you're the owner and you're there every day, you probably have a pretty good product too. So, Buffalo's unique to where, I go to Mulberry, you go to Elio's, you go to Hutch's, you go to wherever it is. And it's a special experience.
No doubt about it. Matt, you got anything else before we wrap up with Eric and let him go?
I was just gonna say, like, what do you think you're gonna shoot on Thursday? What do you think your group is?
Ooh.
What is your goal?
What do
is
we
your
have to aim
target?
for? What do we got to do to be winners here?
I don't know I don't know who I'm playing with yet.
Oh,
I actually requested to be with you guys, and I think I'm playing either with someone from BNL or again with someone that came through, through
yeah.
Oshai or whatever it is. Because I did request to play with you guys.
Wow. You could join us and make it 5 people, but I think that's okay. You're the celebrity. You can go around and play with anybody you want, buddy.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. It was true foursomes. I wasn't playing as like an add-on celebrity. That's true. Okay. I would say in a scramble, with 3 other decent golfers, we shouldn't be anything higher than minus 14 or 15. Just Terry Hills isn't that long. Like I can get us near a bunch of the greens out there because it's not a super long course. Terry Hills can be sneaky tough though, especially because it's gonna be hot, so the course will be hard. It's sometimes hard to stick those greens out there when it's real hard because the greens aren't massive, and so you almost have to like run some of those shots on.
Let me ask you one more golf.
Yep.
One more golf question. Sorry, Sal. I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry. I feel like a jerk. I'm not trying to cut you off. My Wi-Fi just
we rarely have a guest like Eric Wood where we can basically just kind of shoot questions at him and like this. So go ahead.
Let me ask you, what is your most underrated golf course in Western New York? Because I think if I asked you what the best golf course in Western New York are, most people, if they love golf, probably say Craigburn or they maybe say CCB. I'm not counting Rochester for the sake of conversation, but is there a course that you feel like is really underappreciated, specifically in kind of like our half of Western New York?
I really liked Wanaka, and I was a member there very briefly. I actually paid an assessment for the course renovation, and then my career ended with a neck injury, and I dropped my membership. So I've played out there a couple times since, and the renovation looks great. To me, like especially during the spring when we would get to play a majority of our golf up there, like it's not a course that's going to beat you up, but it's beautiful. The greens are nice. It's always just, to me, it's a really fun course to play. Like if you don't have your A game that day, you can still go out there and enjoy yourself, to where like Craigburn or CCB's, like it's going to beat you down. And, if you go out there and you're, expected to walk with a caddy or whatever, it's hard to rebound for that next day of practice. At Wanaka, there's not even car paths. We're driving up right near the greens, and I always really enjoyed my time out there. And then we would actually eat there fairly often on like Friday nights when we'd have people in town, because it was be real quiet in that back dining room. We could kind of, it almost felt like you could kind of get away from the house, but have a, quieter dinner. And so we really enjoyed our time there. There was a public course, Heritage Hill.
Harvest Hill. Right by the stadium.
Yeah. And I always felt like that place, if it was a country club and there was a ton of money put into it, like that's a beautiful piece of property right there. Now, as a public course, it's going to get a ton of play. People aren't necessarily going to treat it right all the times, and it probably doesn't have the money to like truly make it great. But I always felt like that property was absolutely beautiful.
I agree.
Did you have one you wanted to add in there, Matt? Is that why you were thinking of one maybe?
No. But I will say we played Lockport last week, and I love this course. I haven't played that in a while. I'm at Niagara Frontier up in Youngstown, which is an absolute hike, but also think that that's like a very exceptionally underrated golf course in the area.
Yep, I've played Niagara Frontier. Really enjoy that place. I believe I'm an honorary member there. Matt Clark brought me out one day.
Yes, Matt Clark is very connected to Niagara Frontier. Yes.
And then someone recently said I've got to check out Lockport. They sent me a few pictures from the course, and it looked awesome.
Yeah, speaking of that, that's where the 514 Legacy Foundation golf tournament is going to be had next week, and that's Bruce Smith's. His name is attached to that, so I'll be a part of the gala the night before. Unfortunately, can't really play in the golf tournament, but Matt and I just played at Lockport a couple weeks ago for the Chris Maloney Foundation as well, so it's very cool. Hickory Stick is another really good one I like, and I play Brookfield sometimes with our buddy Bill Whippert, who's the photographer for the Bills and the Sabres. Played with Lindy Ruff and Marty Biron out there at different times, so that's a really great course as well. Eric, thank you so much for joining us once again. Thursday in Terry Hills, we're doing the BNL wholesale golf tournament, but it's for the Evan Wood Fund. And then Resurgence, November 4th. That's where you're having your big fundraiser every year. And of course, tell everybody about the podcast.
Yeah, Center on Buffalo podcast. We're going to repurpose this one as well. Sal's been a guest multiple times recently. Matt, I'll have to get you on as well. Just recorded one with Bobby Babich. That'll be a fun one to put out next week. I believe we have Joe Brady coming up for recording, Josh Allen, but we've had Bean and McDermott on recently and whatnot. It's, it's not your necessarily, at least this time of year, kind of your weekly beat podcast, but we have some fun interviewing some guys. Had a really fun, we mentioned Connor McGovern earlier, had a fun conversation with him talking offensive line play. He's into cooking. We sent him some Dano seasoning and whatnot. So it's been fun for me to kind of stay connected with Bills football throughout the off season with that podcast.
Matt knows all about Connor McGovern cooking for sure. Did a segment with him cooking as well. And you can check that out. Yeah, you can check that out. WKBW is where you'll find Matt. WGR is where you'll find me. And of course, it's always Game Day in Buffalo. You can find wherever you pod. It doesn't matter. That's the audio. And then on video at Sal Sports YouTube, the Sal Sports YouTube channel. Thanks a lot to Mike Robier, our producer. And thanks a lot to Eric Wood. Eric will be catching up with you again. Thanks, my man.
Yep, let's do it.
Thanks, Eric.